Hello and welcome to the Method. Hello, everybody. Today we have an interview with Tanner Mansell. Tanner used to work at Intel as an engineering technician before him and his fiance quit their jobs and moved across the country to work for Florida shark diving. It's an inspirational story about following your dreams. We touch on shark conservation, and we also share some funny stories about diving. I hope you enjoy. Bye-bye.
The method, we're eating and sleeping or fight. The method, for marriage or divorce or one night. Well, I know you probably think that it sounds pretty dumb, but the methods you use to get shit done. If you're chatting up a lover, you're going on a run, then it might be wise to heed the words of a pro with a little bit of help. Who knows, to get some happiness out of your woes, to get promoted to CEO of a happy mind inside your head. You don't want to wake up dead, thinking why'd you work so hard for things that hardly work for you. The method works.
Right, so let's just dive in. So you used to work as an engineering technician at Intel, if I read that rightly.
Yeah.
That was before you took this giant leap of faith to quit your job and become a dive guide. So tell us more about your role at Intel and what else you did, with your life before this.
Right. So I was just taking that typical road where, go to school, get a degree, get a decent job, work your way up the ladder, try to retire early. That mentality was just kind of like, that was what I was doing. And I started dating my fiance, and I grew up spearfishing and abalone diving.
Abalones are small to large sea snails, gastropods, and mollusks that live on the bottom of the ocean. Diving for these can be particularly dangerous, as divers often free dive with no scuba gear.
It's always a passion to be in the ocean, but she really, really connected me to the ocean again. And it was kind of like our outlet, and it became, every single dollar we ever made, we would spend traveling to go, either swim with sharks or be near the ocean. And so I'm working my job, and, I'm just thinking, I was actually listening to Joe Rogan a lot, and just, about pursuing passions. And then one day we were just like, why don't we just start saving, and the next opportunity we get to do something more aligned with who we are, let's just take it. And I was sitting in a cubicle, a clean room actually, where I had to wear these bunny suits, and I'm processing inventory for semiconductors. So basically I worked in the fab, and we basically ran different codes to process different semiconductors, right? And so I had no passion in that whatsoever. It was just, like I said, that typical, get a good job, make good money. And I would sneak in, I wasn't supposed to, but I would sneak in my headphones, and I would just listen to podcasts the whole entire time. And every day I went in there, I got a little more motivated to a little more soul searching, a little more looking for what, actually aligned with who we were. And so, we set a goal. We said, $20,000, and then we just leave, and we just do something different, because she was at Tesla, and she wasn't really, she loves the company, but, the grind work, the kind of, she's like a small person in this big corporation, whereas, she wanted to be, more influential. And so we hit that mark. We were on vacation here in Florida. We were swimming with sharks, because that's what we spent all our money doing, is going around swimming with sharks. And they brought on a second boat. They needed crew. They gave us an opportunity. We had the money. It was just perfect timing. And we called and quit our jobs. I called my manager, quit. She called, quit, and we stayed. We've been here ever since.
It's great, man, because I think so many people have a dream like that, and then they set a goal like, 20,000 or whatever, like you say, $20,000, and then they reach that goal, and then they're like, okay, maybe 30,000, and then they kind of put off their goal, and then who knows? She could have been your fiance then, and then you were like after the marriage, after the kids, whatever, and then
Exactly. And those are all the thoughts that were going through our mind. I think that she was, the reason that we ended up pulling the trigger on this, because I remember when we got the opportunity, we were leaving the owner of the company. Now we were leaving his house, and I had all of these, like, I don't know if this is a good idea. Like, we have so much back in Oregon, because I was in Beaverton, Oregon. We're like, we have so much to lose. And she's like, but we don't have kids yet. We don't have any, serious commitments. We're still young, and we can always go back and do that. And so at the time I was so scared, because it was like, it's a huge decision. I worked my whole life. I got a good degree in physics to get this job. And then, like, now I'm in a bunch of student loan debt, and, I'm like, what, this could be the stupidest decision of my life. But then I was like, you know what? She's right. Like, we're young. We got to make this happen. So we did it. And I can honestly say it was just the first good decision that, we ever really made as a couple. Like, it was just, it was right. And we have not looked back.
Fuck yeah, man! I'll drink to that.
Yeah, I got my coffee here too.
It seems like, just as you were talking, then it kind of reminded me, like, my situation was I kind of went to uni not really wanting to go, but feeling like I had to go. And then partway through my course, I was just like, I really don't want to be doing this. And kind of one of the reasons I was really excited about, like, talking to you today, and why I just randomly follow you on Instagram, is that I've always been, like, super interested in sea life, and especially sharks. And just, like, my dream as of, like, maybe quite a few years now was, like, to study marine biology and, like, work with animals and stuff. But it just kind of, life just sort of got in the way, and it never really happened. And I feel like you've sort of just been able to take that leap and take that jump, which is something that I couldn't do. So it's very inspiring, and I'm quite jealous.
I'd say that, you are taking a leap with this whole thing you got going on here. I mean, with the podcast and stuff, it's definitely, I think it was more dramatic in our situation, because we were moving across the country. But I mean, like, as long as you put, incremental work into your, like I said, I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan, your passion projects, you put those incremental steps into those projects, and eventually, you'll have that full-time opportunity to take advantage,
Yeah.
So.
You said you grew up spearfishing. What do you mean by that? Where did you grow up, and what's the sort of connection to the sea?
Right. So, like I was saying earlier, I grew up spearfishing and abalone diving, and that was kind of how I bonded with my dad. So he is a big ocean person, and he would take me when I was as young as I can remember. I think I was probably around 7 or 8 when he was first started taking me out with him to go abalone dive. And being in the ocean, it was cold. So it's west coast of California, which is, Northern California, which is colder water, and kelp forests. Different. It's totally different vibe to here. But I just remember, whenever I thought of the ocean, I would kind of connect that in my mind, that those weekends spent with my dad, abalone diving, spearfishing with him, with Hawaiian slings. It wasn't guns, it was just slings. And like the breakfast, and afterwards, it was like the reward system in place just really connected me to the ocean. And I really enjoyed those times. But then, as life went on, I went to school, and I kind of separated from the ocean a bit. Not because I wanted, it wasn't really conscious, but it was like, it's just life. And then when I connected back with Janelle, that was always her priority, was to make sure that we're always by the ocean. So yeah, just got me back.
Tell us more about abalone diving. Is that not supposed to be kind of dangerous?
There's inherent risks to everything, especially when in the ocean. It took me a long time before I ever got my first abalone dive, or my first abalone. But you know, the depth that we were in when we were diving was pretty shallow. It was a lot. It would range from 4 to 20 feet, and it would be rocky contours. So it wasn't really like I felt a danger from any marine mammal. It was more, the ocean conditions was more dangerous, being, in kelp forests and stuff like that as a kid. And my dad was really, really, really adamant about, being safe. Only, like, we would drive because the dive spot was an hour away. And if we got there and he felt like the conditions were unsafe, we'd turn around. And it was always like, can't we just try it? But, he never risked it, especially, his kid, and I was so young. He always put that safety first. So as long as you do things, in a conscious, understanding, like, not the limits, understanding not to push those limits, there's ways to do it and be very safe. So just being around people that know what they're doing too is key. Always having a good dive buddy.
I was thinking quite a lot about it today, actually, and about how disconnected a lot of people are from nature. And even like us here, we just live in a city, and there's a couple of parks around and stuff, but there's just really not much around. And I guess, like, you talk about a lot about your about this strong connection with the ocean and your love for the ocean. Do you think it's like an instinctual thing, like a human just wants to be more at one with nature, as opposed to like what a lot of us are today, which is, pretty much completely disconnected?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, and I've thought about this a lot because, you think about that when you think about how do you connect people, how do you get people more connected? Is it instinctual? Is it like an inherent, and I think to answer that question, I think that everybody has that, that connection. It's just some people keep going down that path, like kind of like I was with work, where they never kind of reconnect to it. But like, as kids, I feel like, we're always so connected to like animals and nature, and we're always wanting to get outside and play. And every time I kind of think of that connection, I do, in my mind, I go back to when I was a kid and I was always outside, and that's kind of where it all started. And I think we all have that inherent connection to nature. It's just about finding what, brings that out in people, because it does suck how disconnected. And I don't think, there are a lot of positives to technology. Don't get me wrong. I think it's extremely important, but there's also a lot of negatives. And I think that, kids being on their iPads and stuff like that, instead of being outside, it's an issue. So, and I think that is a big cause for disconnection. And, but, you could use it to help them get out. It's just, because without technology, I wouldn't be able to show people what, we're doing, which is inspiring people to get out and check this stuff out. So, there's a balance, but I do think that there is a deep-seated connection that everybody has that we just need to try and find. And then it'll help people want to protect, the ocean and sharks, and which is obviously in my life, that's the most important thing for me as a person. I just want to leave knowing that I tried to get people to help connect to the ocean and protect it, because I think that's the most important thing in the world.
I've done my like basic scuba course and dived a bit in South America, and the whole like being connected to nature is so amplified when you dive, because
Like what, you go out for a walk in the woods and you see a few birds and maybe a few squirrels, and maybe if you're lucky you'll see like a larger mammal like a deer or something. You go under the water and you're instantly surrounded by so much life. It's like,
Yeah.
and it's it's within touching distance. I mean, you're not supposed to touch for starters, and if you do, it's gonna be pretty elusive for touching it. But it's right there, and if everybody could dive, they would see so much more of the ocean than they believe. I couldn't believe it when I first got down there. I was wowed.
Right. Yeah, and like that feeling that you have, I did is so important for people to be able to see that, because there are places in the world where you get in the water and everything is gone, which is the unfortunate reality that we face. And there's more places that used to be beautiful that are, you get in the water and it's like, wow, what happened here? So yeah, that exactly. And it's so amazing, like what the ocean offers. It blows my mind every time. I'm, being out in the water every single day I see something new. It's just like, it's full of surprises. It's full of just, it's amazing. So important.
So go into your job then. What does your average day look like?
Yeah. So, like I was kind of telling you guys a little bit about, we're planning for weather. So say, this weekend it looks pretty good. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, waves or swells supposed to be under 3 feet. Wind's supposed to be, 5 to 10 knots. And, I just plan on working. So I wake up in the morning. We usually have 3 shifts, 8 a.m., noon, and a 4 o'clock. I go to our marina. I greet, me and another dive guide or another captain greet 12 or so guests. We have 6 per boat, 2 boats. Check them in. There's always a lot of nervousness. There's always a lot of people that are like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know how to snorkel. We're just like, it's okay. We're gonna get you through this.
Is this always shark diving?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's all shark. Yeah. And so we check them in. We get on the boat. I brief them. I basically tell them, like, sharks are not what people think. They're not what the media portrays them to be. This isn't Jaws. This isn't Hollywood. So you guys are good. They're going to see you as another predator in the water because of your size. They're unfamiliar with you. And so just, I get them to relax a bit. I get in the water, once I get the sharks up near me, they'll be looking off the side of the boat like, oh my gosh, they're not, the sharks aren't eating him. And then, I slide them into the water. And we have, like I said, groups of 6. And once we get everybody in the water and everyone's comfortable, everyone, get their breathing down. And sometimes we get people, returning guests or people that have shark dove before that are a little more fearless. But, for the most part, we get people that are bucket list, new to this whole experience. And once I get them comfortable with the situation, then, I do my best to get the sharks up, get them around them, get photos of them. And that's kind of what my job is to get them photos and videos that they can take home and show their friends, post on social media, tell everybody that I went out, swam with sharks, didn't get eaten. It was amazing. And that's that. And that's a typical day. We see all kinds of pelagic species, silky sharks, dusky sharks, sandbar sharks, and we got the bull sharks local, got Caribbean reef sharks, occasional tiger sharks, occasional hammerhead sharks. So, and then we got the local lemon sharks as well. So you just never know. And it's really fun.
Well, bull shark, like some of those sharks get pretty bad rep. Like I know you're saying the media portrays them, but like even among people who
shark lovers, people are still out swim with bull sharks and tiger sharks. Well, bull sharks in particular, but tiger sharks as well, right?
Yep. Yeah. Bull sharks are, in my opinion, the most misrepresented thing on this planet, hands down. I mean, it's just amazing how many people say bull sharks, and then they're like, but they're aggressive, or they're like the most dangerous shark and all this and that. And don't get me wrong, bull sharks are extremely powerful sharks, and they're full of testosterone. And you would not want to get into, a confrontation where a bull shark is trying to, eat one of your fish or whatever it is. But in reality, bull sharks do not look at us like we're a meal. Okay. And they are actually, out of all the shark species that we swim with, they're the most cautious of us in clear water.
Oh yeah.
So when their hunting mode is a majority of the time is going to be in very murky water. They go in fresh water as well. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but they're one of the only shark species that can travel in fresh water, and they've been seen miles up the Mississippi River. They're a very unique shark because they can do that. And so when you got kids or people playing in rivers and stuff like that, and intercoastal waters where it's zero visibility, brown water, all these sharks are seeing is maybe a flash of a calf, might look like something dead, and sharks investigate by using their mouth. And very rarely after a bull shark sinks its teeth into something that's not a food source like a human, will they continue to bite. It's always like a grab and let go and leave. Sometimes that can result in a missing leg. Sometimes it's just some puncture wounds. It depends, but on how severe it is. But when they see us in clear water, they know that we're not on the menu. They see us and they stay all the way down by the crate of fish. Whereas we get silky sharks, lemon sharks, dusky sharks, sandbar sharks that will come up to us and check us out and get close to us. Whereas it is almost impossible to get a bull shark to come up without raising the food up, right? They stay low. They want, like when we have dives where we have 10, 15 silky sharks and then a bull shark shows up, I'm always like, hey guys, look at the bull shark. And they're like, the whole time it'll just stay down by the crate, whereas the other sharks will be up at the surface swimming around us. That obviously changes with dynamic of the day. So if we have 15 bull sharks and one silky shark, the silky shark, it will likely stay out of like the bull shark dive. It'll probably stay a little lower, but I would argue that a bull shark is more likely to stay low than a silky or a dusky or anything else. Like they are more, in my opinion, more cautious than the other sharks, and less like if I want to, I can get close enough to touch a silky shark or a lemon shark or a dusky, but it takes work to get close enough to a bull shark. They are aware of you, and they like to keep their distance from us. So a lot of times if we have like a group that is new to shark diving, or they're really scared, I like to have the bull sharks because they're, not to say I can control them more, but because in my opinion, they're more predictable. And that goes along with everybody else that I work with. They're way more predictable. We can leave the crate low and the bull sharks will stay low, and the people that are nervous can just enjoy them from afar. Whereas if we drop in and we get duskies and silkies or lemons or something like that, like they're going to be at the surface with the guests. And if they're getting close, the guests might get nervous and they might freak out, panic. Something about tiger sharks as well. On our dives, we only get occasional tiger sharks, and they are so cautious when they show up on our dives, and rarely do they stick around. They're like, they come in and you can just tell they're just taking these risk assessments. They're looking at everybody and they're like, I don't know if I want to be here. They don't get big by taking unnecessary risks. So they most of the time they leave, and it's hard to get them to stick around. The most time I've ever had with a tiger shark on any of our dives was like, it came around for like 10, 15 minutes and then left. And we were trying to feed it and everything, and it was just watching bait fall, and it was just looking at the bait fall and then looking at us like, I don't know, like just like trying to figure out what it's doing, and then it takes off. Then again, you could, depending on where you travel, you can run into a wild, I like to say wild, maybe a pissed off tiger shark that's looking for a meal, and like they will turn up. Like any shark will turn up if it needs to. But you can understand, once you spend a lot of time with them, you kind of can see the behaviors, and you can watch out for those things and predict them.
Does the behavior and the personality of a shark vary a lot with its species?
Yes, 100%, and it varies within species too. So say we have 12 lemon sharks, which are completely different from bull sharks and completely different from silky sharks. But there are individual lemon sharks that are named in the area that have these names because of their personalities, because of the way that they stand out. And it's so funny because last night I was having a couple drinks with with a couple people that work on a different dive operation around here with the sharks, and they were telling me some stories about this local lemon shark, Snooty, and we were just talking about her personality and how funny she is and how like aware she is. And not every lemon shark is like her. They are all different in their own way, but like this Snooty, the lemon shark, is just like, she's a local legend here. She's practically famous, and she she's just so funny. When she shows up, she has this. They were telling me a story about how there was a couple guests, and this shark, for no reason at all, just goes right up to the guest, and then just starts like swimming super fast at him, and then like darts away. Like, she just has never done that, but she did it to him, and then she like looks at the feeder like almost in a way that was like, haha, scared him. Like, it was like, you know what I mean? Like, for no reason, just swam at these divers and like took around a little bit, and then swam away, and then went to the feeder, just like chill, just like usual Snooty. And they were like arguing. They were like, she's just so smart. She's like a dog. She's just playing out there with us, blah, blah, blah. And, like, that's one of the things we always say to our guests too, is they do act a lot like dogs, but, they aren't dogs. They're sharks. It's different, but they're smart. They're aware. And research shows that, the way that their brain works is so much different from, an ordinary fish, right? It's much more complex. It's much more social. Like the lemon sharks, they grow up in the mangroves together, and they protect each other. They learn from each other, which is another big thing, is being able to learn from something. It just shows like intelligence. So it's really cool. Yeah. So they absolutely have these amazing different personality traits.
Yeah. So when you're like entering the water and you're with a bunch of people that you hardly know, you kind of had to gauge their personalities by being on the boat with them for a small amount of time.
Absolutely.
You get in the water, and then there's a bunch of sharks around you. You kind of have an idea of their personalities by what species they are, but each one of them's individual, and you might know a few. Like, what's your method for calming the situation and trying to sort of like find an equilibrium amongst human and animal emotions like this?
Right. Yeah. So that's a really good question. So the first question I always ask people is, does everybody have snorkeling experience, right? Has everybody snorkeled before? Because we get a lot of people that haven't. And I kind of take like an assessment of the group, like you said. What is their experience level? Has anybody done anything like this? And, say we have a group of there's a couple returning people, and then everybody else, has snorkeling experience. This first time shark diving, but, it's a pretty confident group, right? Let's just say they're pretty, I feel like they're going to be good. Then I tend to do my speech a little more geared towards caution. So I'll be like, listen, I know that you guys have some experience, but remember, you're still dealing with wild animals. Do not touch them. It's not a petting zoo, right? This is, we have to have respect for them. That when you dive down, you're going to lose, that apex status. You're going to become more curious to them. So spend a majority of your time at the surface, and so on and so forth. So when we get in the water, these people are going to be a little more cautious. They're going to be good, because I kind of know that they all have experience, but it's not going to be a crapshoot with them swimming around, like totally confident, so putting their hands in their face like nothing. Because some people, they don't think there are any risks, and there are. You're swimming with there are sharks. Come on, like they're wild animals. so, but you see our track record, you see all our reviews, and you're like, oh, you could get the idea that this is totally safe. But to reiterate, they're wild animals. We need to respect their space. So that would be how I would approach a confident group. And then once we get in the water, I kind of shout, this is a local shark, keep your eyes on her. She is curious. She'll get close to you, and, people will keep their focus on them. But then if I get a group of, they're all very new people, so, a majority of the group doesn't have snorkeling experience. They're nervous. It's a bucket list thing. A bucket list thing is always, a good sign that somebody's like, this is a one-time thing, and then they have to do it to conquer some fear or something, and I can just tell it's going to take a little, persuading and getting them comfortable, getting their breathing down. And then I don't really, I tell them what's important about, not touching the sharks, but I make sure to emphasize, the fact that they can do things wrong and still be safe. So, you know what I mean? Whereas with the confident group, I wouldn't emphasize that quite as much, because I don't want them going over that limit. So I'll be like, listen, like we have, sharks aren't what you think, as long as you do a couple things, and, you can still do them wrong and we can still be safe, but just try to focus on these things, and we'll pull off a safe dive, try to keep your eyes on them. And then, when we get in and we get these different sharks, these personalities, and again, I like to, depending on where we set, we can pretty much predict what kind of sharks we're going to get. There, a lot of these sharks hang out on different spots along the ledge that we drop in. So, you get a group of new people, and, we're going to a spot. I kind of know some of the local sharks there that tend to get a little closer, kind of scare people a little bit. And, I just tell them, like, hey, if we get, this silky shark, that her name is Rhonda, she's older, she's bigger, she's a curious shark. If she comes close to you, don't worry. She's not coming in to bite you. She's just a curious shark. And I'll point her out if we see her, and we'll have our eyes on her. We're going to be right there with you. And so then people get more comfortable. And when the shark does come, I'm like, okay, guys, Rhonda's here. She's coming in. And then, it's almost like they're more excited to see her, because they're like, oh, they were talking about this shark, this local shark. And it seems to work, right? So seem to get people, no matter the experience level, accustomed to the situation, and the dynamic of the dive seems to be pretty good.
I don't know much about sort of like shark migration and things like that, but like, how often do you, like in any one area, if you have like, say like you have different spots, don't you, that you go to, and you get like sharks that sort of are there often. How often do you, like, will sharks go to new areas, and how often will sharks who usually stay in one area sort of like explore out and never come back? Or do they usually like sort of stay in one place?
We set in the Gulf Stream. So we get a pelagic season where we have this silky, dusky sandbar, silky dusky migration, and then we also have oceanic blacktip migration. We also have, the sandbars that come around in the summer. And then we have the more local sharks, which are, the lemons. When they're not at a spot we call lemon drop, they're, in the off season, they're pupping and they're in the mangroves, but they're still local. Some of them travel to the Keys, some of them, go north, but they're the same sharks that we can pretty much get year round the bull sharks as well. We can get bull sharks here year round. The pelagic sharks are traveling with the different, food availability, temperature changes. They travel up north during the summer, travel back south at the end. And so when we set up, in the summer, we're going to try and go and get all the different species. So we're going to try and get the silky sharks and the duskies, the sandbars and the bull sharks, and then maybe Caribbean reef sharks, maybe there's another shark. Oh yeah, like oceanic blacktip or something like that. So if we could get like 3, 4, 5 different species on a dive, that's amazing. Not many places in the world you can do that. But in the winter, it's not pelagic season. So that's where, the lemon sharks will be hanging out more inshore. They like to hang out closer to the mangroves, closer to shore. So we'll go set with the lemon sharks, because if we go out to a spot called Deep Ledge where we get the pelagic species, which is deeper, then we probably won't get any sharks. So it's all just geared towards the season and where the sharks are at. But we have like four different main spots. One of them is Lemon Drop. It's like 3.5 miles offshore in about 90 feet of water. Then we have Deep Ledge, which is about 130 feet, where we can get a lot of bull sharks. Then we go a little bit past Deep Ledge. We still call it Deep Ledge, but it's more around the 180 range, and that's where we've been setting lately. Been getting the pelagic species in the Gulf Stream, which are the silky dusky, and then we also have wrecks where we have some local tiger sharks that hang out. One of them's name is Patrick, one of them's Jenny, and then there's a few more that people haven't seen in a little while. But you could go to the wrecks, and along with the tiger sharks, you also have some more local lemon sharks at the wrecks. And depending on the season, right now with pelagic season, we want people to see as many sharks as possible. So we take them to Deep Ledge. And yeah, so, and if someone's like, comes on the trip and they're like, we really want to see bull sharks, then we'll set, a little bit more inside. We'll get a lot of bull sharks, and then maybe late in the dive, we'll get a silky or a dusky. But for the most part, I think most people want to see as many sharks as possible, which is definitely the pelagic sharks right now.
That's pretty deep, 180 feet.
Yeah, but if you think about it, we're about 4.5, 5 miles offshore. So I guess depending on where you're at in the world, it could be, because there are some places you have to travel like 20 miles to get into 100 feet, but some places, like 100 yards offshore, it's 1,000 feet. So, 180 feet is kind of that maximum depth to where, you can get sharks quickly, because any deeper, you can't drop the crate low enough and to get like closer to the bottom where they hang out. So, 180 feet is kind of that area where if we go any deeper, it's gonna take longer to get sharks. And then you also get the bigger sharks deeper. You can get makos, even white sharks. Yeah.
Pretty clear where you are, the water.
That's another big thing is, it just depends on the day. But most of the time it's clear. Most of the time we got around 70 to 100 feet of visibility, which is awesome. And then some days, the fresh water pushes out of the inlets up north, or I guess south, and then the Gulf Stream takes that water north and it murks it up a bit. And, we're dealing with 20, 30 feet of visibility, green water, which is still okay. Like we can pull off good safe dives in 30 feet of visibility. It's a little bit spooky for people sometimes, including me. I don't love being in 20 feet of visibility with sharks. Because they kind of aren't there and then they're there, and it's like, okay, but it's just harder to do photos and videos in murky water. So, and people are obviously really, really looking forward to their photos and videos from the trip. So, I always keep my fingers crossed for blue, clear water.
Well, when I first ever dived was in Cuba, and that was like super clear. And I'll tell you more about that later, but I didn't have much expertise, I could say, and I felt super safe. But when I actually learned to dive, I learned in Colombia, and that was like, I guess like 30 feet worth of visibility at best all the time. It was just always murky. I mean, there was loads of wildlife, but it was murky as hell.
Yeah.
And it felt way more claustrophobic.
Yeah, the kelp forest, Northern California, where I grew up spearfishing, 30 feet of visibility is like the best data they'd ever had. It was like 12 feet of visibility was good, doable, so you had to literally dive down and then hit your face on a rock to see what was going on. And you crawl around the rocks just to see, where the abalone are. That was some days. And so I remember like this, this feeling of like, this is a lot of fun, but I see photos of people on this blue, I always in the back of my head was like, I got to do this one day. I got to do this one day. And then I finally went to Hawaii, and I was like, this is paradise. Like, this is amazing. And, we get those Hawaii blue water days here, which is nice. They're not all the time, not as consistent, but there are days when we get the water is like 150 feet of visibility. We're in 110 feet deep, so you can see the bottom crystal clear. I have a couple photos that I've taken shooting from the surface down on a shark, and then you can make out the bottom, which is like one of my favorite ways to take a photo. I just love that look. It's like artsy.
Are there like certain factors in spots of the ocean that will make a certain species of shark live there? So is it about like food source or like currents and temperature and stuff like that?
Absolutely. So I was just talking to one of my friends about this. I don't know if you guys follow her. Her name is Madison Stewart, but she's running this nonprofit in Indonesia where she's taking local shark fishermen and she's using them as captains and their boats as tours. And so every single time she takes these guys out, people out with her social media, she's basically renting out that boat that would be shark fishing and using it to show people the ocean. And one thing that she really wants to do to complete this project is to be able to do shark dives there. But first, she needs to make sure that she has protection, because if they start shark diving, the other fishermen are going to come fish them out. So, but she's been doing a lot of research in this, and she was like telling me all the factors that play into why it would be a perfect location for shark diving, because the tiger sharks there are local. There's a lot of reasons that she was explaining, and I'm not exactly sure of the details, but it was really, really interesting to hear her talk about why, when it comes to current, when it comes to the year-round available temperature, when it comes to all these things, these tiger sharks, when they're bred there, they're raised there, and they don't leave. They're there for good. And so she's like, we could be getting tiger sharks year-round, which is not a super common thing, because the Bahamas, you have seasons. It's winter season, you get the tiger sharks, but then they leave because they're migration. And so yes, like that was kind of a big opening of my knowledge to that they don't necessarily all have to go through these migrations. If they have year-round supply in different areas of the world, then yeah, they could be local to that area. I think it just depends on, where they're pupped and all that good stuff, and kind of the routine that they fall into. But it's just really interesting to me that the tiger sharks in the Bahamas migrate and they leave, and then the ones in Indonesia, she's claiming are local and will stick around year round. So yeah, there's different factors that go into that.
I was reading something the other day about how like the shark populations are doing and how the ocean's doing in general. And I read that because of all the overfishing and obviously a lot of the pollution in the ocean, a lot of sharks in certain areas can't stay there just because their food sources are gone. And it's kind of causing them to migrate because they have to find different food sources.
Yeah, that I think that there's a lot of areas where they're being pushed out, unfortunately. There's a lot of different, things that are going on that are really, really hurting the shark population, including, shark fin soup and long lining and all that. And but one thing is, food availability, and they've been around for millions of years, so much longer than we have. I would hope that they would, find a way to stay alive, and if food is scarce, that they'll figure out a way to migrate and find that availability. I can't speak too much on the details or the specifics on where this might be happening, but I could definitely see that as a.
Do you work on sort of any specific projects within conservation, or is it sort of just like part of your job that you're raising awareness?
Yeah, right. So there's several different ways that I have gotten involved in conservation. The first way was my fiance and I created a little personal brand-esque company called Sapackley, where our goal was to spread awareness for the ocean, have eco-friendly products, and do different film photography type shoots where they're conservation based. And that was kind of my introduction to like being like, okay, like how do we do conservation full time? Like how do we promote sustainability like in a bigger macro scale? So that started, we were making shirts out of recycled water bottle. Well, we were in contact with the manufacturer that made shirts out of recycled water bottles, and we were doing all that. And then that was before we got our jobs on Florida shark diving. And then just bringing conservation up daily to people in the company, just telling them how important sharks are, how they're threatened right now with extinction, if things like shark fin soup, daily just talking about that. And then I think the big one though was the one that I was mentioning earlier, was getting involved with Madison with Project HIU.
That's Project HIU.
And for anybody that isn't, I highly suggest shooting them a follow, seeing what they're getting involved in. That was kind of a big step in conservation for me, because we went to Indonesia and we saw the shark markets firsthand. We saw the boats unloading the sharks, them cutting off the fins, auctioning them off to the bidders, and we saw the whole thing. I had spent so much time in the water with them. It was definitely difficult. It was really difficult to see 15 tiger sharks laying there dead. When seeing a tiger shark once every 2-3 weeks come up on a dive was the most exciting thing ever. It leaves you feeling like for days just like this giant buzz of like, oh my gosh, I still can't believe that happened. And then going to these shark markets and seeing them just all fished out. I created a short little film for her about the project. Super, basic. Just this is what she's doing. Here's some footage of the trip. This is how she's helping the community, and my involvement in the nonprofit has just been to support her, promote it, whatever it is, and then hopefully eventually be able to help her when she is ready to have a shark diving operation. So I would love to get involved in that. We've already discussed that a little bit. But first, that's a long way off, because first she needs to get protection. She can't have those sharks be fished out if she starts anything. But there's a lot of potential there. And I mean, that really completes a full circle of, she brings people, basically she has a trip price, you pay her. She brings these people to Indonesia, where she introduces them to the shark fishermen, which, by the way, are not bad people. They're just trying to survive. These people are obviously doing what they have to do to get by, and they're eager at a way to do anything else. And you can tell that they just don't have another option. That's what they've always done. So bringing on tourism into the community is is amazing to them. The person that Madison hired for their first trip, his name is Odie. He named his daughter after Madison. So yeah, which is amazing. I mean, it just goes to show how much it means to him, for him and his family, to bring on not only more money, but to be able to get off of shark fishing. It's dangerous. Sometimes they find themselves in water that is not, is outside of what they should be in, because they have to get what they have to get. And, they've been shot at, it's a very different world that they live in over there. And they're jumping at that opportunity to do something new. And so being able to support her, go on that trip, film, and then, hopefully get more involved as time goes on with the sharks, and just being able to do that operation there is a huge part of the conservation related activity in my life, and my fiance, obviously. And so yeah, and then just supporting people that support the ocean, supporting conservation in any way. We went to there's a fin bill here, so in Florida, here in the U.S., still probably is, but it was the largest import-export of shark fins in the U.S. because it's the hub, right? This is lots of shark fishermen here too, and there was, a bill proposed by, I forget it, Stephanie Brindle is the head of Shark Allies, a little nonprofit that, supports sharks. But Kristen Jacobs wrote this bill. She was a part of the committee where they wrote the bill up, and we went to support that in Tallahassee a couple months ago, where, we show up, and you got two sides of the room, the people that support the bill, the people that don't. And they go through and they read all the names, and you have a chance to talk. And it was really, really cool, because we drove 6 hours to be there, and their strategy was for us to just say our names, say where we came from, and then sit back down. And it spoke a lot that we drove all that way, didn't say anything other than just checking in. And so they, the people up in the committee that were running the whole thing were like, so you drove all the way from Riviera Beach to be here to support sharks. And there was a whole group of us. There was like 30 of us there, all from different areas, but Janelle and I and a couple others from Riviera Beach. And they were just like, this is amazing, And then you got the opposing side, the fishermen that are selling fins, that are obviously in opposition, and they all stood up and spoke. And to be a part of that, to show support for the bill, which eventually passed, which was huge because now it's illegal, was really cool too. That was a huge part of, conservation and just being involved in helping sharks. And then unfortunately, Kristen Jacobs, the one that wrote the bill up, passed away right after the bill passed from cancer. And so it was like her last hoorah, and it was very emotional and touching for people involved.
I can imagine. I think it kind of, as you were talking about it, it kind of reminded me of I watched a documentary recently. I'm not sure, I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was about like farmers and how farmers are just kind of controlled by these massive corporations, and like all this like chicken farming and cow farming, and it's all in really poor conditions and things like that. But they're just doing what they have to do to get by because they're in so much debt with all these corporations that own their land and stuff. And it kind of reminded me of a similar thing in that there's a lot of fishermen out there who are just doing their job, and that's all they've got. And obviously a lot of people can get quite angry at them, but without being aware of everything that's going on, which I mean, I think it's also quite difficult to be very aware of everything that's happening, because a lot of the stuff you said then in terms of like, I didn't know that it wasn't illegal in Florida to shark fin and stuff like that. And I bet there's probably quite a few places where it is still legal. And even if it is illegal, there's obviously still a lot of fishermen that just need the money and are still doing it anyway. So there's a lot going on that probably
absolutely. Oh my dog's just walked into the room here. I'm just gonna put him outside real quick. Yeah, and there unfortunately still are some loopholes, and there still is the illegal trade, which makes up a majority of the shark fin market. And unfortunately, you got the result of all this is just a status symbol. A fin in your soup makes you look wealthy, and all that is totally a status symbol. And then you get down to the heart of the issue, and you got people that are just trying to survive, and so they're wiping out the ocean just unknowingly, just doing what they have to feed their families. And then you got over here, I've had several conversations about, you just got kind of greed. You've got people that just don't respect the ocean, that are fishing, but then they hook sharks, and they, instead of releasing them, they want to get a couple extra bucks, so they fin them and then send them off, which is hopefully coming to an end here now. I'm not sure as to, so the law has taken place. As to the effect that it's had so far, I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that the whole finning in Florida is coming to an end, because they're not making any money from any other part of the shark. It's just the fins, and ultimately those fins are going, what use is that for? It's just to be in a bowl of soup. So it's just ridiculous. This isn't Jaws. This isn't Hollywood.
Right, I'm going to lighten the mood now because we've hit a glum patch. So yeah. I'm guessing you're pretty clued up on scuba, the scuba protocol and the right way to dive. I'll tell you about the first time I ever got to dive, and I'll see what you think. So the first time I ever got to dive was in Cuba, and my friend had met this guy on the beach, and we'd been drinking all night the night before, sort of straight rum. And we wake up in the morning quite early, and we're still really pissed. Yeah, and so we go down to the beach, and we're well over the limit. And there's one guy there on the beach, little pencil mustache, 2 Coke spoons, and he gives us the gear, and he gives us about there's two guys in total. There's him and there's another guy who's sat on a bar, like a makeshift bar with rum and coconuts, just pouring rum into coconuts. That's it. And he gives us, he says, he gives us a thumbs up. That's if you want to go up. Thumbs down. That's if you want to go down. I can't remember. The this is bad, and then the okay symbol. This is okay. Let's go.
Yeah.
Get in the water, drunk as hell, and then we do dive. It wasn't so deep, but it was amazing. And the moment I go underwater, I'm like sober. It's fine. And then the moment I come out, I realize I'm so drunk. And then they start serving us alcohol. What do you think of that?
It's definitely dangerous. I mean, you're not supposed to drink in scuba, but I mean, it's so, as like a newer scuba diver, I definitely don't recommend that because, you got all these different things you're probably trying to balance as far as, just how to breathe out of your regulator, right? So, it's hilarious because I'm sure it was amazing. There's a lot of people, I'm not going to say names, but that have done scuba drunk, and it is fun. But I don't think it's highly recommended. And it's hilarious that they were just like feeding you drinks, and then it's just like off we go. But yeah, I mean, as long as you're around people that if they see something going wrong, it's all about the dive buddy. If you got somebody that knows what they're doing, I think you can still pull off a good dive. But
yeah, a testament to the guy who took us. If he didn't care at all about protocol, he never strayed more than a meter away from either of us. Like he was touch us, and we went too far down. But I guess the second time is also good, but maybe even worse. So after we did this, and my friend, we're pretty confident. So we go to a proper scuba place, and we ask them, can we scuba? And they're like, have you got a license? And we're like, no. And they're like, have you been before? And we're like, yeah, loads. So we go on this dive, and it's a wreck dive, and it's 30 meters down. And we didn't know that this was deep. So we just go, and we go off the boat, and my friend sinks down maybe 15 meters instantly, just straight down. And and so we go down to this wreck dive, and we're like experiencing diving basically for the first time, because the last time we were drunk, and we're like down, and we're like in this wreck. And then the guy comes up to us because he knows we're terrible, because first of all, we're swimming, we're not even falling, and then he comes, and we end like maybe half of the time the other people do, maybe just over half, and he's like, go up. And you know what we do? We just go up 30 meters.
Oh my God.
My leg. He grabbed hold of my ankle and was like, no. He was like, one hand over another. Hand over
Right.
Whatever. So what do you think of that for a second?
I would say that's definitely more dangerous right there. There is a lot of different things. First of all, they probably shouldn't be letting you get in without a license. Like that's crazy. But I'm sure you learned in your open water that there are a lot of risks with decompression sickness, and if you don't take that seriously, you could end up seriously hurt. And so I definitely, again, not advisable. I'm sure you guys probably had a lot of laughs.
Yeah.
But, you've got to be slow. You can't rush it. You can't rush anything. Going down super quickly, going up super quickly is very dangerous for your body, and especially when you're at 30 meters. That's a deep dive for somebody that's going for their second time. And you can drop. I think it's a meter per second is the recommended. It's been a while, but if you're going down a meter per second, just fine. But if you're diving in and going 15 meters down in a couple of seconds, that's scary. But yeah, it's funny that you guys blew through your air. Is that what happened? Is that why you had to cut your dive short?
And he looked at our
Going around going with your hands.
Ruin straight up. I'll just just say that now after that I went and did my scuba course and I realized how stupid all of that stuff was. And
Right.
the only testament was that we had no fear. We were so
Yeah.
relaxed that we never panicked at any point. We just
Right.
and it was in Cuba. It was super clear, and it's still the deepest I've dived now. I've dived quite a few times. It's still the deepest I've gone.
Well, the fact that, it is really crazy, man. To not have a certification and go on that deep of a dive is like, that's honestly pretty crazy. Because when you learn in your open water course, there's way more to it than you think, just breathing underwater. There's so much more. And before I got my cert, I was like, how hard could scuba be? You just breathe underwater, But when it comes to buoyancy, when it comes to, the rate that you're supposed to descend, ascend, the safety stop at 15 meter or at 15 feet, it's like, it's very, very important. And to not have a license and to drop down 30 meters is
No, it wasn't. It was 15. He did it. We were on a ledge.
Okay.
Not 15. And another.
Okay. Well, that's better, but it's still not like.
He was like the one person out of like the 10 of us in the group that was down at the bottom while we were all at the top. Do you know what I mean? Like we were all just looking down at him, and he's just like, he said he had a huge pressure under his eyes. I mean, one thing I think we laugh is that we didn't even know how to put the suit on. Like they gave us the stuff to put on, and we're like watching other people and putting it on. Yeah. Other people are like clipping the belt on, and like, is this the right way, man? This is a testament as well to how people will do anything for money. So Cuba's a little bit more relaxed, right. And two white guys with money, who will they'll take us. Who seem confident, they'll take the risk.
It is crazy, man, because you wouldn't be able to do that in the U.S. Like that's very, like, the protocol in place there is very sloppy, because they're just like when it comes to gear, there's so much to gear that you need to be careful of, and just having your extra reg candy for somebody, like little things, understanding the way that your air works to go in for the first time. That's crazy.
When you quit your job and you swapped over, did you have a lot of, like, a big knowledge base about diving and about sort of dealing with sharks and stuff from diving before, or was there a lot you had to learn sort of on the job?
Yeah, there kind of a little bit of both. So, like I kind of said before, we spent all of our money and time that we ever made to just travel around and swim with sharks. And, that was definitely our passion, was to be in the ocean. We were, scuba certified. We were, we were good in the water. And that's the reason why we were offered jobs, is because of the experience that we had with sharks. But the environment that we are in now, being with sharks every single day, we've learned exponentially more, about just everything. I mean, it's a different ballgame. I remember when we first started working for the company, I was thinking like, this isn't, this won't be too bad. I already know a lot, but I knew nothing compared to what I know now. And I'm sure I know nothing now compared to what I'll know in a year, right? It's just like, you're always learning so much. And, I think that when I first came on, I was qualified enough, but I definitely wasn't as qualified as I needed to be extra. I got my freediving certification, my level 2 freediving cert, learned a lot about the rescue scenarios with people that are blacking out, that are, when it comes to, somebody might have a panic attack, just how to hold them, how to, get them to breathe again. And then with my captain's license, the CPR strategies and different things like that. Like those are all things that, I've done throughout working there, which I probably, to start probably should have had, but being scuba certified and all that, I already had a lot of basic stuff in place. But when it came to shark behavior, there's just no way nobody is going to be qualified unless they're working for another shark diving operation. Just working for a shark diving operation is the only way that you're going to get the experience, and you have to start somewhere. It's like everyone has to start working for a shark diving operation at some point, and that's the only way after that to get the experience is just to show up every day. So, if that makes sense, yeah,
For sure.
Well, one of my friends wanted me to ask this question, but I think it's probably we probably covered it. But she says the myth that if a shark is attacking you, you're supposed to boop it on the nose. This can't.
I would. So that would probably just piss it off. So the thing is, there's a lot of different scenarios that you could be in. So, a shark attacking is such a broad, first of all, you need to, whenever you're in the ocean, you need to know what are potential risks that would make a shark want to come up to you. So if you're spearfishing, you have a fish, right? A shark, you might have a confrontation with a shark. It's not because they're attacking you, it's because they want that fish. And a lot of people say a shark attacked them when they're spearfishing. No, the shark is trying to get their fish, right? So it's not trying to attack them. So having the correct, behaviors in the water will allow you to safely complete that mission. So first of all, if you have a fish and a shark is approaching you, a lot of people, when I've seen videos of people being like, it was like the craziest, a moment of my life, bull shark was all over me because I had this fish, and I watched the video and I'm like, okay, the shark isn't by any means overstepping its territory. It's just, it might be circling you because you have a fish, but it's still being cautious. It's still keeping its space. It's just seeing what's going on. It wants that fish, but it's debating on coming in. And then there's some situations where the shark comes all the way in, pumping in, and they get really close and they have to push it away or whatever it is. That happens too. But, there's several different things that you can do to, make sure that things are safe. I wouldn't recommend, punching it or anything like that because it could just piss it off. I've had sharks that are getting close to guests, and I've gotten physical with them. I've tried to show them that's not okay, and it majority of the time results in them looking at me like, what are you doing? Are you they're kind of under attack mode, in which case they could swim away and get scared, or they could come right back at you and they could be like, what? They're protecting themselves. They're like, what's going on? And so I think a more graceful approach, which is kind of crazy. A lot of people might, there are some people that might disagree. There's some spear fishermen that are jab that thing with your spear gun as hard as you can to send it a message. But again, that's not what I would do. I think that would just potentially piss it off, and it might not help. Simply what I would do is if a shark was approaching me, and depending on the situation, if you're diving, if you have fins on, I would just put your fin tips up on its face, and just put it over its eyes. A lot of, they might bump into your fin tip. Either way, if they try to investigate, they're going to get fin, and they're not going to get anything. You got that fin, use it. Cover their eyes. They don't like their sight being covered. And realistically, if they're coming up from the bottom, I think that's the safest and least invasive way to approach the situation. If they're coming at you head on, and you're not sure what to do if the fin tip isn't an option. First of all, if you have a fish and you're not used to having sharks around, you just give the shark a fish. Don't try to keep the fish and battle the shark, because they could potentially win. And, that might not be a good situation. If you don't have anything, there's not a whole lot of reasons why a shark will approach you if you don't have a fish. If you're on a surfboard, most likely you're not going to see it coming. But there's a lot of different techniques in place for people on surfboards to be able to, which isn't really my area of expertise, but I could always point people in the right direction if they want. I know there's a surfing guide to sharks that, again, Madison Stewart is working on right now. But in the water, the best way is to just show yourself. So the bottom line, best way is to show that you're a capable predator in the water, right? Show them that you're aware of them. Show them that you're dominant, that you're alpha. Even if you're scared, like, fake it till you make it. Show the shark, I'm present, make yourself big. Say, I'm not scared of you. Look it right in its eye, show it that you're aware of it. And when they approach you, I would say 9 times out of 10, depending on the situation, they'll leave. If you don't have a fish, because that's just how they are. They're just cautious, and if they do get close enough to you to where you're in touching distance, what I would do is I would just top of the head and then, like down, right? Just so sometimes they investigate with their nose. So they bump and they open their mouth. If you go top of the head, you keep the head down, and you can just push them down, redirect them down, and then push them on their way. A lot of times once they feel something, they realize it's not food, and they'll understand. So it just depends on the species as well. Like I don't recommend redirecting a bull shark with your hand. They're just a different shark. I would definitely try the fin technique with a bull shark. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you could try the punch technique, see how it works out. But, being with them every single day, seeing them approach me, I've never had to punch a shark to get it to leave me. I've never had to. I've done the fin technique, I've done the redirecting, and that's only in that small percentage of the time to where they are close enough to where I can't even do that. Because most of the time, if you assert yourself as a predator in the water, you show them you're aware of them, they'll leave on their own. They are naturally cautious, like I said. They're naturally fearful of us. And just to have that understanding that, when a shark is approaching you, it's not because it's trying to attack you. It's because they're curious. They're another curious animal in the water. They're investigating the scene. They want to see what you are. And if there are different things that you got going on, whether it's spearfishing or whatever, you just need to understand the inherent risks and to be able to just either give them the fish if you have to, or assert yourself. And, yeah. So
I guess this goes to sort of why awareness and education is so important, because it's fearing what you don't understand, isn't it? And obviously it doesn't help
absolutely.
with all, obviously, like Jaws and Sharknado and great film, by the way, Sharknado. But
absolutely, yeah.
the media too, and the way they're just sort of put across to everybody, it's not really surprising that people see them as these like bloodthirsty apex predators that are just like, kind of the complete opposite of what they're actually like. And that's a big part of the problem, and something that needs to change for sort of conservation efforts to start becoming more successful.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. It all starts with the media and the depiction of sharks. Sharks have been so negatively portrayed in media. It's all about the dramatization. It's all about how do we get people to engage. And so even Shark Week, I remember last year I was watching Shark. I don't really watch Shark Week a whole lot. I just, it's so ridiculous. I just laugh at it most of the time. But I turned it on, I think it was 2 years ago, and they had a bull shark episode where the bull shark was like biting the cage and all this stuff. And I'm like, the amount of effort that they had to put in to get that shot is insane. They had to drag bait up to the side probably for hours until that thing finally tried to take a bite, and they had to get them in a frenzy. It's just like, that's not how they act. And it's ridiculous. And it sucks because everybody watching Shark Week, goes into the ocean thinking that this is what the sharks are going to do to them and so a lot of people are scared to connect to the ocean because of sharks, this inherent fear. So that definitely needs to change. And I know Shark Week is getting better about that. They're involving more people involved in conservation. They're slowly getting better, which is good. But, it needs to definitely change quickly, and we need people to get on board because, they're disappearing at a rate that's very unsustainable. And so we need people to start helping them out.
Yeah, I read sort of in preparation for this, I was just sort of like checking in on how things are doing, and I got some pretty morbid numbers, but it was something along the lines of more than 3 sharks are killed every second. Some shark species populations have depleted by 90% in the last 50 years. Over a third of all large shark species may be vulnerable to extinction in the near future. And it was just kind of a massive list of just statistics that were quite horrible to read. It does seem like, though, that people are becoming more aware, and there are a lot more people, working within conservation and things like that. So there are positive lights to it, but it does still seem like there's, a lot of negativity within it, which is a shame, of course.
Yeah. Those statistics are so scary, aren't they? And if you look at how long sharks have been around and all the mass extinctions they've survived, and then, to understand, to just look at the big picture and to understand the impact that humans have had on, the environment and sharks specifically is kind of, it's really discouraging, and it really sucks. And it really all boils down to shark fin soup and this massive demand for it, for something so ridiculous. And, like you were saying, though, there's a lot more awareness being spread. I'd say when I first started getting involved in conservation, 1 out of every 10 people I met probably had heard of shark fin soup. And I'd say that that's increasing a lot. More and more people are aware of the plight of sharks and just, the situation that they're in, which is good. And it's also, I think it might be because I'm surrounding myself by a lot more shark related people, but you never know. A lot of people that come out on the boat, they love sharks, so they know all about them. I'm not sure how that is in the rest of the world. I can't really speak on that, but I like to be optimistic. I like to think that we're going to get the regulations and the protection that they need in time. It just really, really, really sucks to see, like that trip that I took, to see the impact that each boat gets 40 sharks. They have something like 30 something boats, and they're out on the water every single, so 2 weeks at a time, 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So, I mean, these guys are catching so many sharks. And to be at that shark market and to see all of these big apex predators, there's no wonder why they're vulnerable to extinction. And it sucks to the people that don't think it's an issue. That's really another conversation. But there's still a lot of like local fishermen who, a shark eats their catch, and then they say, there's too many sharks, we should cull them all so we can catch all our fish. Well, they need to understand that without sharks, they wouldn't have fish, right? It's a top-down, ecosystem where, the more sharks you have, the healthier the ecosystem. They're the cleanup crew. They keep things in check. And these people that are saying these things, is really, really hard to not get aggravated and frustrated, and to, because they won't hear us out. They refuse, right? They have their mind set, and it'll always be set until the day that they leave this planet. So, and it sucks because we've tried and tried, and it sucks. But you know what? There's a lot of young conservationists coming into the picture, and it's always nice to support, kids that are getting involved with sharks. For anybody listening that wants to follow a couple of those kids, there's this kid that named Cade Save Sharks. He's a really cool kid. He's big into conservation. And then you got I highly suggest following Madison Stewart and her projects, and there's all kinds of different projects going into place. It gives me hope.
For sure. Like, I guess education is the big thing, but is there any? I mean, those are good people. Is there any way that people at home can, do something to help other than just not fall into the traps of some negative media? And you don't have any more of those things to help point us towards your nonprofit again as well, because
yeah. So yeah, I do think that there's a lot of different ways that you can help. The big ones are going to be, understanding where your food comes from, I think is big. There's a lot of different markets that may sell sharks as substitution for, saying tuna. Like, a lot of restaurants do that as a big thing. And then also, supporting businesses that are, big in sustainability. They're conscious of where they get their products. And then, just daily being able to spread awareness, get people on the right page as far as to what's important, to like bring up the conversation to those that might not know much about it, spread the word so we can get a collective effort into, getting the right leaders in place that are going to support the right things. We always, vote for what you believe in. And then, when it goes to, obviously, like I was saying, with the food is huge, but then also other products such as, clothing and whatever it is, whatever you buy, we basically write the rules with our checkbooks, because, if there's no demand, then these things won't be profiting. And that's ultimately the goal is what we do with our checkbooks really determines where the demand will take us. And so just being conscious of what you buy, what you put into your body, who you support, and then bringing up that conversation to people. And, the Project HIU, so it's project and then HIU is the one that I'm involved with. Well, that I've been involved with, and that I'm going to continue to be involved with. And that's Madison Stewart. Her Instagram is Shark Girl Madison. She's doing a lot of great things. And then, you've got Shark Allies, which is the people that we were involved with here in Florida, with the bill for the shark finning, and they're doing a really, really good job. And then you got things like Blue Sphere Foundation, which are a couple really big shark conservationist photographers that put together. It's Sea Legacy and Blue Sphere Foundation are along the same lines, big conservation nonprofits that are spreading awareness for the ocean. These are all things that you can follow on social media, get updates, day-to-day things that you can get involved, and you can start. It just kind of spirals, right? You get involved in one thing, it leads you to another thing, and And then the big one you mentioned earlier, you know, that you've listened to or watched documentaries. Documentaries is like what really changed my life. I highly, you know, if you want to get involved in conservation, actually, you know, everything I've said is very important, but watch Racing Extinction. That's what really did it with me. Racing Extinction. Watch The Cove. The Cove is, you know, Racing Extinction is about just kind of where we're at as far as, you know, a global extinction goes and what we're doing to the planet. Then you got The Cove, which is about the slaughtering of dolphins in Taiji. So that's insane. You would never think that was such a big issue, but that's just one place in the world. This is happening globally, the slaughtering of these dolphins. The Cove. And then you can watch, you know, just every nature documentary that there is on Netflix will give you an idea as to where we are at and where we need to be and what you can do, right? Just like get involved in documentaries. That's, you know, big.
I mean, Blue Planet and Planet Earth as well is like, you know, it's like a massive thing in the UK. I mean, it is everywhere in the world, but like it's hard to find anybody our age who doesn't watch it. You know, when they were releasing the second ones, there was nobody that we knew who weren't watching it, and every one of those episodes is bookended with a real gut punch of a message. Yeah. Like, and you know, this is important, and I guess I'm excited to see that the people our age who are really passionate about this grow up to take those views into the rest of their life and be more conscious about those things.
Absolutely. I'm so happy you brought that up. Blue Planet, you know, and David Attenborough with his narrating, such an inspiration. So cool. I absolutely love Blue Planet. And it's the best way to get people on both sides of the spectrum involved, because the cinematography is just so incredible, absolutely incredible. And it's not like they're, you know, it's not, you know, documentaries can be very, very one-sided. They can be very, you know, like they can push people away. Whereas Blue Planet is simply just these clips, these amazing videos put together with facts, and then, you know, like that cold hard punch at the very end that just motivates you to get involved. And you know, I've been in different houses with different sets of people that have different values and beliefs, and you know, basically trying to find the right way to say, don't really necessarily believe that the ocean is a top priority, like these people, but I've seen in their house, you know, Blue Planet playing, which is like, that's why it's so powerful, because it reaches all audiences. And it's really good stuff. There's one cinematographer in one female cinematographer in all the Blue Planet 2, and I actually spent the weekend with her and got to ask her a bunch of things. It was really cool.
Julian.
Yeah.
Listen to her speak on someone else's podcast about a lot of these other things as well. She's pretty amazing person. People should check her out.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's just so cool to be involved in all that and see what goes into it. And that's another, you know, potential goal of mine in the future, is to be able to go on these expeditions and get footage like that. Be really cool.
Great. Well, yeah, I mean, just to sort of round it off, and my last question was going to be sort of, you know, what's next for you? Because you've already got your dream job, which is very inspiring. But have you got anything coming up that people should, you know, pay attention to? Anything going on?
Right now, like you said, you know, things are really good. As far as, you know, long term, you know, I've got several different things on the table. I'm balancing. I'm trying to find a way to do what I love and have a sustainable source of income, where, you know, like, you know, different sources of income, to where I can be confident that, you know, if I can't shark dive for a couple months, I can still be good, you know. And a couple of those things is one of them is our personal brand, is just simply selling prints and different eco-friendly merchandise, is always going to be a way. And so if you guys ever, get a chance, I would love, the support via our company, which is it's divespackly.com, and then we're selling some prints on there. So that's always cool. And then bigger and kind of, I think, more importantly, I'm not sure if you guys follow Discover Sharks, but I met the founder of Discover Sharks in Indonesia, and we clicked. And we recently decided to team up on a little thing. It's basically we're going to be pushing a brand with the Instagram account and several other things, and we're going to be selling shark related merchandise and different little things shark related. And so that's kind of in the works right now. And I'm looking forward to seeing where that takes us. Really just trying to take advantage of any opportunity at the moment, and just kind of see where life takes us. Right now, I'm very happy with where I'm at. I don't see myself not, going out to do photo packs for people for a long time, and I'm happy with that. But also, like I said, taking advantage of opportunities, like with these brands. So my personal brand, and then Discover Sharks, being able to team up and help that project get going. And then there's also another project. It's called it's a media project that I'm involved in, where we're basically going to be taking viral videos, licensing them to our company, and then hopefully distributing them to big, large platforms that are monetized, and signing contracts with them to where, they use our videos that we've contracted from independent filmmakers. They get paid via these big platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and then we get a percentage of that, and we pay a percentage of that to the filmmaker, which is like another really cool way to get involved in the media world of just, viral videos and that kind of thing. Again, not sure where any of this is going to go. It might just be an idea, because right now it is just an idea. It hasn't really taken flight, but you never know what the future might hold. Just little things like that. There's several other, little things that, we've thought about. But right now, managing, building Florida Shark Diving is kind of my priority. I was given a chance, Janelle and I, my fiance and I, were given a chance to come here and do what we love. And so our priority is definitely building this company, helping spread awareness for sharks, getting people great photos that they can be proud of, and whatever comes along. We're just kind of going with the flow at this point.
Well, yeah, like you're super passionate, and I mean everything you say sounds exciting and in the real place. So I like power to you, man.
Really appreciate it, you guys. I'm so stoked I was able to get on here and do this. I've, wanted to do a podcast like this for a while. So, yeah, thanks so much for having me on.
Stress, man.
Where can people find you then on social medias? Let's get everyone involved.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram as Tanner Underwater, and then Facebook or whatever. I don't use Facebook quite as much. I do have a Tanner Underwater Facebook page that you can like. I think it has like 10 likes. I don't know. I don't use it very much, but I also have my name is Tanner Mansell on Facebook as well. I primarily use Instagram is where I post my stuff. I post updates about prints and all that good stuff. So it's Tanner Underwater. And then Florida Shark Diving is the company I work for. Just Florida Shark Diving on Instagram. If anybody ever wants to come swim with sharks in the U.S., Florida here, I would absolutely love to take you out and show you the beautiful side of sharks. Yeah, so just let me know. And then, and then Sepacly is our personal brand. It's Cipatli, Cipactli, came from an ancient Aztec mythological sea. I guess in theory, the ancient Aztecs believed that the Earth was a shark, and his name was Cipactli. So that's where we came up with that name. And that's where we sell our prints and different little things like that. So you can always contact us on there as well.
Sweet, man.
Great. Well, thank you very much. We're happy to wrap it up there, unless there's anything else you want to talk about.
I just appreciate you guys having me on, and hopefully for anybody listening, you're a little bit more motivated to get out and protect the ocean, maybe get involved in a little conservation, get involved in, maybe checking out what's underneath the surface, and maybe lighten the mood about sharks. Hopefully people understand that they aren't these big scary creatures, that they're beautiful, and we should all work to help them out.